Hey, what's up? I'm Alex Boccia, guitar player for Old Ironsides, and today I'm going to play the solo from our song off the new album, The Path of Madness, Breaking Loose. And then I'm going to discuss with you how I wrote the solo and what some of the ideas were and why I was using some of those ideas when I was writing the solo. Okay, so now let's talk about how I wrote the solo and how I came up with some of these ideas for the solo and why I made the choices that I did. The guitar solo for Breaking Loose was basically written in three separate parts. We have the beginning, where it's more melodic, and then we have the middle section, kind of part two, which is faster, more notes, more intense, and then the third section, which is, again, more melodic and helps relieve some of the energy that the second section built up. An important thing that I want to mention to you before we get going are the chords that I'm using. The chord progression over the solo section consists of a D major chord, a C major chord, and a C suspended fourth. Okay, so I start off the solo with an ascending D minor pentatonic scale sequence. Ascending creates excitement. The solo is just starting, so it's a good way to kick it off. And this scale sequence is going to build up to my target note, which is a C note that I bend up to the D note. I'm bending up to the D note because the first chord being played is a D major chord. I also do something that I like doing a lot, and it's a cool idea. It's done a lot in blues music, where I have a flatted third and I resolve it to the raised third, so that way it fits the chord better. I will do this most of the time when using the minor pentatonic scale, the D minor pentatonic scale, over the D major chord, because there is no F note in the D major chord. There is an F sharp, but there is an F note in the D minor pentatonic scale. So anytime I hit that F note, I want to bend it up a half step, so that way I can resolve the note from a dissonant note to a consonant tone, which the consonant note is the note that is in the chord. And at that time, the D major chord is being played, and F sharp is in the D major chord. Okay, so after the scale sequence, I go into a D minor pentatonic lick, and about halfway through I have a double stop bend. Okay, after that D minor pentatonic lick, I go into the D Dorian mode. The D Dorian mode is just going to give me a few extra notes that the D minor pentatonic scale will not give me, which can help add color to my solo. So that's something I like to do a lot, is I like to switch between a minor pentatonic scale and either its parallel Dorian key or parallel minor key, so I can get more color. In this case, I'm using Dorian. Notice at the end of that lick, I go into an eighth note triplet rhythm. This helps build momentum for the next section and is a good way of closing one section and introducing the next. Okay, so now we're in part two of the Breaking Loose solo. Here the energy is the highest due to the constant uses of 16th notes for 8 measures. That's known as rhythmic density. And in this case, it's a very dense rhythm because there are so many notes fit into these 8 measures. The first lick is based off a D7 arpeggio. The notes go F sharp, D, C, A. At that time, the D major chord is being played, so this works well over the D major chord. The next lick is based off a C add 11 arpeggio with an A note added in. The notes go A, F, G, F, E, C. The C add 11 arpeggio works well over the C major chord and the C suspended fourth because it contains both the E in the C major chord and the F in the C suspended fourth chord. So this lick gets played over both those chords, but it works well when either chord is being played. Though in this lick I'm using 16th notes, which divide the beat into 4 equal parts, I'm actually grouping the notes into groups of 6. This causes the licks to start over again every 1.5 beats instead of every 1 or 2 beats. This can also give a sense of propulsion. It also helps to break up the monotony of the constant feel of 16th notes throughout this section. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The rhythm of the next lick begins as an asymmetrical rhythm, which helps break up the feeling of a constant pattern. Also notice that these licks gradually ascend in pitch, which creates a feeling of forward movement, tension, and excitement, which builds up to the highest note in the solo, which is the climax point for the solo, and that note is the D note on the 22nd fret of the first string. The ending of this part of the solo is a descending scale sequence, still 16th notes, but the descending quality of it helps release the tension that we've been building up from the previous licks in this section, gradually ascending. This scale sequence ends with a C major arpeggio played with a quarter note triplet rhythm, which again helps to signify the ending of this section and the beginning of the next. Also note that the C major arpeggio was chosen because that is the chord being played by the rhythm guitar at that moment. Okay, on to part 3 of the solo. This section of the solo is sort of a variation on the first part of the solo, starting on the C note, being bent up to the D note, right as the D chord gets played. The rhythm in this part of the solo is less dense, which complements the previous section, which has a very dense rhythm of the constant 16th notes. So there's much more space between the notes, for the most part, in this section. Something I have to do many times throughout the solo is switch back and forth between the keys D Mixolydian and D Dorian, because in D Mixolydian, which I use mostly over the D chord, all the notes are natural except the F sharp, and there is an F in the C suspended second chord, which would clash with the F sharp note in D Mixolydian, which isn't exactly my cup of tea. Some people like it, but I choose to switch. So by changing to the key of D Dorian, I can get my F note over the C suspended second chord. This is known as a closely related key change because only one note is changing and all the other notes stay the same. That note that is changing is the F to the F sharp, or vice versa. One of my favorite techniques I use in this section. There is a moment where I am bending the string with my left hand, but then I tap the same string with my right hand. I have to pick the right fret to tap because otherwise I can end up with a note that is not in the key. I bend the string a half step, B to C, with my left hand, and then I tap the 17th fret on the same string, which normally would give me an E note, but because the string is already being bent a half step by my left hand, I'm actually getting an F note, which is the note I want to hit. I basically repeat the main phrase twice in this section, but the second time around, I end it with an ascending triplet scale sequence, moving in thirds, which builds up to a descending scale sequence, ending on an E note. Again, the triplet rhythm helps build excitement and build tension, and then descending with a scale sequence following that helps to relieve that tension. I'm going to end the descending scale sequence on an E note because the next section of the song is going to begin and it starts on an E major chord. So by ending on the E note, I'm ending on the root note of the chord and it sounds nice and stable. So thanks for watching. I hope I was able to give you some ideas on things that you can do when you're writing your own solos and at least educate you a little bit on why I'm doing the things that I'm doing in my solos on the old Ironsides record. If you want to hear some more of the solos throughout the other songs and start thinking about how I used certain ideas in those songs, check out The Path of Madness, the new Old Ironsides CD. It's out now. You can go to oldironsidesband.com to pick it up. I'd also like to thank One Chance Clothing for the support, and check out the new t-shirts once they're out. Also, check us out on Facebook, Old Ironsides, and give us a big old like. If anyone's face has melted throughout the period of this video, I highly suggest that you get on the phone and call 911 right away and save that beautiful mug of yours.